Maria Alvarez had worked in the grand estate for over a decade, cleaning its marble floors and dusting its gilded mirrors. The sprawling mansion was the pride of the affluent Pembroke family, but to Maria, it felt suffocating. A place of secrets, where shadows lingered in broad daylight. One morning, as she polished the antique furniture in the study, her hands froze. There, tucked beneath the leather blotter on the desk, was a photograph she'd never seen before. It showed the Pembroke family gathered on the mansion steps, but there was someone else in the picture. A woman Maria had seen only once, and in that moment, the truth came flooding back. The woman had disappeared a year ago under mysterious circumstances. Maria knew what happened to her, but she had never told anyone. And now she realized someone in the house knew Maria's secret too.
Ready to enter today's mystery maze? Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more cases like this. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think.
The Pembroke estate sat atop a rolling hill, a sprawling mansion surrounded by manicured gardens and high stone walls. To the outside world, it was a symbol of power and privilege, home to one of the wealthiest families in the region. Inside, the family patriarch, Richard Pembroke, ran his real estate empire with an iron fist, while his wife Eleanor played the part of the gracious socialite. Their three children, Lydia, 24, Henry, 21, and young Theo, 9, were the picture of refinement. Maria Alvarez had been their housekeeper since the birth of Theo. She was loyal, meticulous, and discreet, qualities Eleanor valued highly. Maria lived in a small cottage on the edge of the property, away from the grandeur of the main house. Though she often overheard snippets of arguments or saw bruised egos in passing, she kept her head down. It wasn't her place to get involved. But a year ago, everything changed. 1 year earlier, the Pembrokes had hired a personal assistant, Vanessa Cole, to help Eleanor with her social calendar and philanthropic work. Vanessa was bright, efficient, and strikingly beautiful, a fact that didn't go unnoticed by Richard Pembroke. Her arrival disrupted the delicate balance of the household. Maria first noticed the tension one evening as she cleared away empty wine glasses from the drawing room. Richard and Vanessa were sitting too close, their laughter too intimate. Eleanor, standing by the window, gripped her champagne flute so tightly Maria feared it might shatter. Months later, Vanessa vanished. The Pembrokes told everyone she had moved away for a better opportunity, but whispers around town suggested otherwise. Maria knew the truth. She had seen something that haunted her, something she tried to bury in the back of her mind. But now, with the photograph in the study, it all threatened to resurface. The night Vanessa disappeared, Maria had been working late in the kitchen when she heard raised voices coming from the library. Peeking through the slightly open door, she saw Vanessa standing face to face with Richard. Their argument was heated, but Maria couldn't make out the words. Vanessa stormed out moments later, her heels clicking furiously on the marble floors. Maria assumed it was just another dramatic spat, but as she finished her work that night, she saw something chilling. Richard carrying a heavy rolled-up rug through the side door, his shirt stained with something dark. The next morning, Maria noticed a faint red smear on the floor near the doorway. She cleaned it without a word. When she asked about Vanessa's absence, Eleanor snapped, "She left. That's all you need to know." Maria's instincts told her not to press further. From then on, she kept her head down and avoided the library altogether. But now the photograph she found, tucked in the desk, suggested that someone knew Maria had seen more than she should have, and they wanted her to stay silent. Later that evening, as Maria locked up the kitchen, she found a note tucked under her cottage door. In neat, unfamiliar handwriting, it read, "Be careful where you look. Secrets aren't safe, even for you." Maria's heart pounded as she scanned the dark garden. For the first time in years, she felt truly unsafe. Someone in the house knew what she'd seen, and they were watching her. The note under her door haunted Maria as she went about her duties in the house. Every creak of the floorboards, every hushed conversation between the Pembrokes sent her heart racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her every move. Her nerves peaked one afternoon while dusting the library, the very room where she had last seen Vanessa. As she wiped down the bookshelf, her cloth brushed against a small metal latch she had never noticed before. A hidden compartment swung open, revealing an envelope stuffed with photos. Maria froze as she sifted through them. Most were innocent enough. Family portraits, holiday snapshots. But near the bottom of the stack was something that made her blood run cold. A photo of Vanessa, standing at the edge of the Pembroke Estate's pond, her face turned toward the camera with an uneasy smile. Scrawled on the back were the words, "Taken the day before she left." Maria couldn't stop thinking about the pond. It was tucked away behind the gardens, surrounded by tall oaks and rarely visited by anyone but the landscapers. Late that night, unable to shake her unease, Maria grabbed a flashlight and ventured out to the water's edge. The air was cool and still, the only sound the chirping of crickets. Maria hesitated before shining her flashlight across the surface. The beam caught something glinting in the mud near the waterline, a small silver bracelet. Maria picked it up and recognized the charm immediately. A tiny star engraved with the letter V. It had belonged to Vanessa. Her stomach churned. She had cleaned that pond-side path countless times over the past year. But the bracelet had never been there before. Someone wanted her to find it. The next morning, Maria was summoned to the sitting room. Eleanor Pembroke stood by the window, her hands clasped tightly. Without turning around, she said, "You've been acting distracted, Maria. Is there something you'd like to tell me?" Maria's pulse quickened. "No, ma'am," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Eleanor turned, her gaze icy. "Good, because loyalty is a valuable trait in this house. I trust you understand that." The conversation left Maria shaken. Eleanor had always been distant, but this felt like a veiled warning. Did she know about the bracelet? About the photograph? Maria realized that Eleanor wasn't just aware of the secrets in the house. She was actively protecting them. Just as the tension seemed unbearable, the Pembrokes' middle child, Henry, returned from university for a surprise visit. Henry had always been kind to Maria, often chatting with her while she worked. But this time, something about him was different. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and seemed to avoid the library altogether. One afternoon, as Maria served tea, Henry pulled her aside. "Have you noticed anything strange lately?" he asked, his voice low. Maria hesitated, unsure whether to trust him. "What do you mean, sir?" Henry glanced around before replying, "I found something in my father's study, something that doesn't add up." He didn't elaborate, but the worry in his eyes told Maria that Henry knew more than he was letting on. Maria's next clue came when she accidentally knocked over a stack of books in the library. As she bent to pick them up, she noticed something sticking out from behind the bottom shelf, a small brass key. On a hunch, she tried it on the locked drawer of Richard's desk. The lock clicked open, revealing a file folder labeled V. Cole. Inside were bank statements, emails, and travel receipts that painted a damning picture. Richard had been funneling money to a hidden account in Vanessa's name. There were also printouts of threatening emails Richard had sent to her. "Stay silent, or you'll regret it." At the bottom of the folder was a single sheet of paper that made Maria gasp. It was a forged resignation letter, dated the day after Vanessa's disappearance. With the evidence in hand, Maria faced an impossible choice. If she went to the police, the Pembrokes would know she had betrayed them, and their influence could ruin her life. But if she stayed silent, the truth about Vanessa's fate might never come to light. Late that night, Maria heard footsteps outside her cottage. She peered through the window and saw a figure standing in the shadows, watching her. When she stepped outside, there was no one there, but the note on her doorstep was clear enough. Leave it alone, or you'll regret it.
Are you lost in the maze? Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more unsolved mysteries. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments.
The morning after the note appeared, Maria couldn't focus on her work. Every glance from Eleanor, every muffled conversation between Richard and Henry, felt like a veiled threat. Maria finally decided she couldn't face this alone. That evening, she slipped into Henry's room while the rest of the family was at dinner. "I need to talk to you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Henry looked startled but nodded. "What is it?" Maria hesitated before showing him the documents she'd found in Richard's desk. "I think something happened to Vanessa," she said. "And your father knows more than he's saying." Henry's face paled as he scanned the papers. "I knew he was hiding something," he murmured. "But this," he trailed off, shaking his head. "We need to go to the police." Maria grabbed his arm. "If we do, your family will destroy me. I've seen what they're capable of." Henry stared at her for a long moment before saying, "Then we'll do this carefully. Leave it to me." Over the next few days, Maria watched as Henry began quietly gathering his own evidence. He questioned the gardener about the night Vanessa disappeared, searched the property for hidden clues, and even accessed Richard's private email account. What he found shocked him. Emails from Vanessa threatening to expose their affair, followed by cryptic replies from Richard hinting at eliminating the problem. Henry confronted his father in the study late one night. Maria, cleaning nearby, couldn't help but overhear their heated exchange. "You lied to us," Henry spat. "What happened to Vanessa?" Richard's voice remained calm, but there was a dangerous edge to it. "You don't understand how these things work, Henry. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made." Maria's heart raced as she heard the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. She fled back to her cottage before she could hear more. Henry couldn't let it go. Without telling his parents, he took the documents Maria had found and the emails he uncovered to the local police. Initially, the authorities were skeptical. After all, the Pembrokes were a powerful family. But the evidence was too damning to ignore. Within days, a search warrant was issued for the estate. Police combed through the library, Richard's office, and the grounds. Maria stayed in her cottage, watching from a distance as officers dug near the pond where she had found Vanessa's bracelet. What they unearthed sent shockwaves through the town. A shallow grave containing skeletal remains, wrapped in the same rug Maria had seen Richard carrying a year earlier. Forensic testing confirmed it was Vanessa. The discovery of Vanessa's body tore the Pembroke family apart. Richard was arrested and charged with murder, obstruction of justice, and evidence tampering. During interrogations, he admitted to the affair but claimed Vanessa's death was an accident. He insisted she had fallen during an argument, and in a panic, he had buried her to protect the family. Eleanor, furious at being humiliated and lied to, filed for divorce almost immediately. The once powerful matriarch was now the target of public scorn, with many accusing her of being complicit in the cover-up. Lydia and Theo, too young to fully understand the depth of their father's crimes, withdrew from public life. Henry, the whistleblower, became estranged from his family. "I couldn't stay silent," he told reporters. She deserved justice. For Maria, the aftermath was bittersweet. She became a key witness in the case, recounting the events she had kept hidden for so long. Though many praised her bravery, she faced backlash from those loyal to the Pembrokes. Anonymous threats continued, and she was forced to leave her job and move to another town for her safety. Despite everything, Maria felt a sense of relief. For the first time in a year, she could sleep without the weight of guilt pressing on her chest. Vanessa's family, though devastated, thanked her for speaking out. "Without you, we might never have found her," Vanessa's sister said, tears streaming down her face. Richard Pembroke's trial became one of the most talked about events in the region. Media outlets swarmed the courthouse, capturing every dramatic detail of the case. Prosecutors painted Richard as a ruthless man who silenced Vanessa to protect his reputation and his family's wealth. They presented damning evidence: the emails, the forged resignation letter, and the testimony of Maria and Henry. Maria's testimony was especially powerful. Her account of the night she saw Richard carrying the rolled-up rug riveted the courtroom. Though the defense tried to discredit her as a disgruntled employee, Maria remained calm and composed, earning the jury's trust. Richard's lawyers argued that Vanessa's death was accidental, but the evidence of a cover-up was overwhelming. After weeks of deliberation, the jury found Richard guilty of second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for 15 years. The Pembroke family's fall from grace sent shockwaves through the town. Once admired for their wealth and influence, they became a symbol of privilege gone unchecked. Eleanor, who had moved out of the estate, faced relentless scrutiny. Some accused her of turning a blind eye to Richard's actions, while others pitied her for being a victim of his manipulation. Henry, now estranged from his family, became an unlikely hero in the eyes of the public. He spoke openly about the importance of standing up for the truth, even when it meant going against his own blood. Maria, however, faced a more complicated reception. While many praised her bravery, others, particularly those loyal to the Pembrokes, saw her as a betrayer. She received anonymous threats and was forced to leave town to protect herself and her family. For Vanessa's family, the discovery of her body and Richard's conviction brought a bittersweet sense of closure. Her sister Laura spoke at a press conference after the trial, thanking Maria and Henry for their courage. "We can finally lay Vanessa to rest," she said, "but no sentence will ever bring her back." The family held a private memorial service by the pond, where Vanessa's bracelet was found. They planted a tree in her memory, a living tribute to the vibrant woman whose life was cut tragically short. After the trial, Maria relocated to a neighboring town and found work as a caretaker for an elderly couple. Though the experience had left her shaken, she found solace in knowing she had done the right thing. She began attending therapy to process the trauma of the past year, slowly rebuilding her sense of safety and trust. In time, Maria connected with advocacy groups for whistleblowers and domestic workers, using her story to raise awareness about power imbalances and the importance of speaking out. She also began writing a memoir about her experiences, hoping to inspire others to find their voice in the face of fear. The once grand Pembroke estate was sold to pay for legal fees and damages. What had been a symbol of power and prestige became a hollow shell, a reminder of the family's fall. Locals speculated about its future. Some said it would be torn down, while others believed it should remain as a cautionary tale. Eleanor and the younger children moved out of the public eye, while Henry continued his efforts to atone for his family's sins. He donated a portion of his inheritance to charities supporting domestic workers and victims of abuse, vowing to use his privilege for good. Years later, Maria reflected on her decision to come forward. Though it had cost her dearly, she believed it was worth it. The truth has a way of coming out, she told a reporter during an interview. "You can't bury it forever, no matter how much power you think you have." The story of Vanessa Cole's disappearance and Richard Pembroke's downfall became a local legend, retold as a warning about greed, secrecy, and the courage it takes to confront them. Maria, once a quiet housekeeper, had become a symbol of resilience, and though she never set foot on the Pembroke estate again, she carried with her the knowledge that she had done what so many others could not. She had spoken the truth. Maria's memoir, Whispers in the Mansion, A Housekeeper's Courage to Speak the Truth, became a bestseller, resonating with readers worldwide. In the book, she recounted her years at the Pembroke estate, her discovery of Vanessa's fate, and the difficult decision to risk her safety to expose the truth. Her memoir wasn't just a recounting of events, it was a call to action. Maria highlighted the vulnerabilities of domestic workers, many of whom witness abuse, corruption, or crimes, but fear retaliation if they speak out. The memoir spurred national conversations about workplace protections and inspired legislation aimed at safeguarding whistleblowers, especially those in domestic roles. Maria was invited to speak at conferences, true crime podcasts, and advocacy events. Though public speaking didn't come naturally to her, she embraced her role as a voice for the voiceless. Henry's decision to expose his father fractured his family, but he found a new purpose in helping others. He pursued a career in social justice, using his privilege to support organizations that provided legal aid to vulnerable populations. He became a prominent figure in advocacy circles, often working behind the scenes to fund initiatives aimed at exposing corruption. When asked about his father in interviews, Henry responded candidly, "I'll carry the shame of his actions for the rest of my life, but I'm determined to make something good come out of it." Though his relationship with Eleanor and his younger siblings remained strained, Henry began to rebuild connections with them over time. Lydia, in particular, admired his courage and eventually joined him in his efforts, working as a counselor for survivors of domestic abuse. He partnered with national organizations like Justice for All and Witness Alliance, using his inherited wealth to fund initiatives focused on exposing corruption and providing legal aid to those in need. One of his most impactful projects was the Whistleblower Protection Fund, which provided financial and legal resources for individuals like Maria, people with valuable information, but little power to act without jeopardizing their livelihood. The fund gained national attention when it helped uncover a human trafficking ring tied to a wealthy real estate developer, drawing parallels to Henry's own experience of confronting power within his family. Henry rarely gave interviews, but when he did, he spoke with raw honesty about the burden of his family's name. "I can't undo what my father did," he told the Times, "but I can make sure the next Vanessa doesn't suffer in silence." After its sale, the Pembroke estate was left abandoned for years, its once pristine gardens overgrown with weeds. Locals avoided the property, calling it cursed ground. Urban explorers who snuck in reported eerie sensations, like hearing whispers or seeing faint figures near the pond. Eventually, a group of investors bought the estate and transformed it into a retreat center for survivors of trauma and abuse. The center, named the Vanessa Cole Foundation, offered therapy, housing, and job training for those rebuilding their lives. Maria attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, standing beside Vanessa's family as they planted a tree in her honor. The Pembroke scandal left an indelible mark on the community. Once idolized, the Pembroke family became a symbol of unchecked privilege and moral decay. Gossip about the family faded over time, replaced by a more profound awareness of the hidden struggles within seemingly perfect households. Schools and community centers began hosting workshops on recognizing abuse and empowering individuals to speak out. Maria's story was often cited as an example of the courage it takes to confront injustice, no matter the personal cost. Maria Alvarez never imagined that her life as a quiet housekeeper would intersect with a story of wealth, power, and murder. Yet her bravery in speaking the truth became the catalyst for exposing the dark secrets of the Pembroke family. The fall of Richard Pembroke and the discovery of Vanessa Cole's fate forever changed the community, inspiring a reckoning with the dangers of unchecked privilege and silence. Maria's decision to come forward, despite the risks, reminded others of the profound impact one voice could have in the pursuit of justice. Through her memoir, her advocacy work, and her connection to the Vanessa Cole Foundation, Maria's story became a beacon of hope for others trapped in the shadows. Henry Pembroke's transformation into a champion for justice further underscored the power of choosing integrity over loyalty to a flawed legacy. While questions about the full extent of Richard's actions may linger in true crime lore, the heart of the story remains clear. Courage, compassion, and persistence can bring light to even the darkest of places. Maria, now living a peaceful life far from the Pembroke estate, often reflects on the journey that brought her here. As she tends to her garden or works with survivors through the foundation, she carries with her the memory of Vanessa and the countless others who deserve to have their stories told. For Maria, the truth was not just an act of justice. It was a path to freedom, a way to reclaim her voice, and a promise to herself that silence would never hold her captive again.
Thanks for joining us in the maze today. If you enjoyed this case, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Leave a comment below, and we'll see you in the next case.